Good morning, gamers. Today we'll be talking about my favorite Terraria class, the Mage. Mage class has its own diverse set of choices to go through, and every different way has its own pros and cons. This is why I'll have two different videos about the two best kinds of Mage loadouts in Terraria. You can check out the other one in the description. This video will cover the Lunar Flare. This video will be covering a Terraria Endgame Mage loadout that is all about an extreme burst of damage and mana regeneration. So, the final stage of Terraria, there are two strongest magic weapons, Last Prism and the Lunar Flare. Now, both of them can be used the same way, but they can also be used in completely different playstyles. It can be utilized in a very powerful way. The Lunar Flare is a spell that casts bolts only from the sky, downwards, and explodes into little AoE damage. The bolts can go through floors and just follow your cursor anywhere on the screen. You could basically say it's like a magic zenith weapon. So let's see how best to utilize this weapon and its absolute power. Today's loadout will be using the Nebula armor because it's the absolute best mage armor. The buff boosters from the set bonus are absolutely insane. It's just gonna trump any kind of combination that you could possibly think of. Moving on from that, let's look at the most important part, which is the accessories. This is a burst of damage build. So naturally, you would want a burst of damage, an extreme burst of damage, the highest you could possibly get. That's why we have 4 different emblems here. We have the Sorcerer Emblem, the Celestial Emblem, the Destroyer Emblem, and the Avenger Emblem. After that is one of the most important parts of the build, the Regeneration Band. Now of course you'd ask me, why do we have a low tier item in an endgame build? And why is it not on Menacing? If you notice in the accessories, there is no use of mana potions. This is because mana potions take up too much of our damage and it's just not worth for this build. So how do we regen mana in a meaningful way? And this is where the mana regeneration command comes in. This is just one part out of 4 parts of the build that are very, very important. It uses mana regeneration rate and it uses maximum mana by 20. And the extra arcane modifier gives us another 20 mana, being a total of 40. And this is really, really important because the more mana you have at the moment, the faster you will regenerate mana. Another important part of this passive regeneration build is the mana regeneration potion, the crystal ball, and the buff booster. This is why we need the buff boosters, because they give you damage boosters, mana regeneration boosters, and regeneration boosters. The mana regeneration boosters are gonna absolutely help us a lot. The last 2 accessories are very straightforward. The reason that I went for a Soaring Insignia Starboard is because I want to be mobile and not be relying on the mount or anything, because I want to just go around, dodge, and get my boosters so I could keep on firing. And because of a Celestial Emblem, I could even go around and pick up mana stars. For the buffs, it's very straightforward. Mana regeneration, damage potions like the Wrath and the Magic Power, and then the Critical Strike from the Rage. After that, we have the Crystal Ball. The Crystal Ball is very important. Always have a Crystal Ball as a mage. And it gives you an extra 20 mana. It gives you mana regeneration and a bit of damage and mana reduction. So let's see how much damage this build does. On a single target, it does about 6,000, 7,000 damage. On a couple targets, it does about 18,000, 17,000. The best part of this build though is a single flare can basically kill just about anything, like in just one burst. So usually, if you're in a situation with a lot of enemies around you, the best thing you can do for crowd control is put your mouse high up around here or basically here, and you could just have such a wide range because of the AoE damage that it does. See, look how much damage it does just from the explosions, and not even from the flare itself. That's enough to kill an enemy in master mode. Like a lot of enemies in master mode, most can just die to that. So that's why you're gonna want to do as much of area damage as you can by doing something like this, or maybe like here, because there's gonna be a space between here and here where you don't really need the direct damage, but the explosion damage is just enough to kill anything. Now, let's get on to the final point of the build. You're obviously gonna run out of mana. Let's go out of God mode and check how this works. You keep firing, And you just keep firing, and then eventually you'll run out of mana, right? So that's why we have all of these mana regeneration bands and the damage, because if you do all of these buffs, including the mana boosters, you'll fire for about 15-17 seconds straight of absolute 20 DPS per second, and then you'll regen for 7 seconds. It's just enough time for a burst of damage to be deadly, but also enough time to regen mana that it won't be too much of a fallback. So you just keep firing for about 17 seconds. Actually, it's almost 20 seconds. And then you regen again, see how fast that goes. And then you keep firing again. And that's why we need both the damage and the mana regeneration. The damage is very, very important. And I mean that by a lot, because there's no point to a damage burst build if your damage does not make up for the time that you're not firing. Usually bosses just die after 2 bursts if you hit all of your shots in master mode. So that's all there is to the endgame damage burst build. Points to remember is that this build is all about an insane burst of damage at a certain amount of time and a shorter amount of time for mana regeneration. If you achieve that, you'll be completely fine with anything and you won't be using mana potions at all. I myself really like this build, and it's really helpful if you haven't gotten to endgame yet. That's all there is for today. Make sure you check out the other 2 videos that I've released on the same day. See you.